The Integrity Sports Podcast is changing gears on August 17th, and we want you to be a part of it.
Welcome to the Integrity Sports Podcast, covering local sports in the Southwest Georgia area, creating content that is factual, positive, and informative, promoting efforts by athletes, coaches, and sports administrators. Now, here's your host, Tim Estes.
Hello and welcome to the Integrity Sports Podcast, powered by Harper's Tree and Stump Removal. If you have any tree trimming, tree or stump removal needs, Harper's Tree and Stump Removal has you covered. They can even build ponds or repair pond dams. They can haul rock and sand. They can help you with your driveway work. Or now they even do horizontal grinding of large wood debris piles. Give Keith a call at 229-314-2048 or at 229-938-2412. Harper's Tree and Stump Removal is proud to be the premier sponsor of the Integrity Sports Podcast. Today is our 27th episode, and the Integrity Sports Podcast has grown immensely in its first few months. We want to thank all the businesses that have been sponsors of our program, and even have a couple of new sponsors coming on beginning on August the 17th. Speaking of that, we'll be changing gears beginning on that date, August the 17th. What I mean by that is we're going to go live on Thursday nights starting at 7 or 7:15, somewhere around there, and we'll be broadcasting from the Roman Oven Pizzeria. And our plans are to preview the upcoming week's high school games for our local area teams. We are hopeful that some of the coaches may come by and visit with us each week. And one of the guys that's going to be my co-host most of the time, we hope, will be our guest today, and that's Scott Westbrook. Scott, thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you, Tim. I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad after the months of negotiations with our contract and your people got with my people, and we finally came up with a equitable pay scale. We were finally able to work something out and get this thing kicked off on the 17th.
Hey, and I think we got a pretty good pay scale there, at least supper out of the deal.
That's right.
Scott, as we look toward this new format and previewing particularly Sly County, Southland Academy, and Sumter County High's games each week, talk to our audience about what you hope that people will enjoy about that program.
You know, Tim, I hope one of the main things is I hope they get to know the kids and the coaches. They get to where they know who it is standing on the sidelines, who it is making the plays out there. Hopefully we can peel the onion back also and talk a little bit about the players, their plans after school, maybe some of their hobbies, what their dreams and aspirations are, and a little bit of trivia, behind the scenes knowledge about maybe some of the coaches too. Like a lot of people may not know that one time I was a PA announcer in Taylor County, and Coach Earl Dupree was playing football for Hawkinsville, and he was down on the field when we had a bench clearing brawl and had to end the game and early that time. And it's funny because Earl and I will talk, Coach Dupree and I will talk about that from time to time. But those things that most people may not know, and probably some of his players don't know about him. But and we also, I think both of us want folks to have more interest in high school sports in general.
Yeah.
A lot of times the people go to the games and they watch the games and they take in the band and watch the cheerleaders, but there's some other things that people may not notice is the sponsorships, and you know how important those are. And I encourage people and try to tell people, look at who's in the program, look at the signs around the stadium, on the field, and tell those people that you saw it and you appreciate that they are actually sponsoring local high school athletics. This is not your Walmarts, and this is not your Krogers. These are your small town businesses. And I remember a story many years ago that they were trying to raise money for a local high school team, and this was a very small rural town. And they went in the high school baseball coach went in the men's clothing store and said, "Hey, would you like to buy a sign for the baseball field?" And the guy that owned the store there said, "Well, who plays baseball? Who's on the high school team this year?" And he named them off, and he said, "I don't know a single kid on that team." He said, "I don't know they've ever even come in my store." And so those kind of things are important that we do that, and we support the ones that support us as far as high school athletics. And ticket sales and concessions, I think most people don't even think about how important that is to a high school budget and the sports budget. It's a very expensive. I don't think your average fan, if you ask them what do you think a high school football helmet costs, they would draw just complete blank, and I wouldn't know if I had to buy one or two in my lifetime. So
That's right.
The ticket sales and the concessions, that helps out the cheerleaders and the band with the band uniforms and the football team. And what else have you got to do on a Friday night, really and truly, other than go and support your local team? And I think we both want to educate and inform people. We want folks to know when they come to watch a football game, kind of what to expect. Is this going to be a passing team? Is the defense, strong, or are they struggling right now? And tell me a little bit too about the teams they're playing. Do they have some young men who are going to be playing on Saturdays? And it's somebody I might want to look. And I think those are the things that I think you and I both want to cover. And with some research, we can let people know before they go to the game on Friday nights what to look for.
Yeah, Scott, you and I are about the same age. And when we were coming up, you had newspaper was basically your level of journalism.
Mm-hmm.
And because of guys that covered games for the newspaper, a lot of times human interest stories would spin out of that and you'd get to know some of the athletes a little better. That's not the case here 35 or 40 years after we were in school. Media has changed. And my hope is that this will give us a chance, like you said, to shed some light on these young men, the coaches, maybe even the cheerleaders and the band, because they're such a big part of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you and I are on the same page there. We've always tried to keep things positive here on the Integrity Sports Podcast, and we certainly plan to stick to that standard. The Integrity Sports Podcast is all about doing things the right way. And Scott, we all know that right now, every high school football team is hopeful. There's a lot of optimism because they haven't played a game yet. And as we get into this program and think 5 or 6 games into it, some teams may be struggling. We want to make sure everybody knows, we're not going to focus on the struggles. We'll give records and things like that. But there's a lot of things, even when you're struggling, that are positives on that team. And I think what I'd like to get you to talk about, you're the father of a high school athlete. Talk about some of those things that could be a positive, a beauty during the struggle.
Well, there's only one Buford in the state of Georgia, and everybody else is cyclical. There's some good years and bad years, especially in the areas that you and I are going to be covering. They're not programs that just have great, strong population centers to pull from. So you've kind of got to go with what you have. And one of the things I think that I can speak on my own is the encouragement and the wisdom that the coaches give to my son in particular. Regardless, we've been very fortunate that we've had some great winning seasons, but his first year there was it was a rebuilding year for the program, his freshman year, but there were so many positive things that came out of that the friends that he made on that team, still the seniors that were on that team still reach out to him to this day and encourage him and say, hey, we're watching you, we're rooting for you. And those friendships and that brotherhood and the coaches that sit there and invest in those kids. They're the football and the Friday nights is a byproduct of what they pour into them. And I know with my father-in-law being a former high school football coach and just hearing the stories whenever, we had his visitation and funeral when he died a few years back, they talked about some of the Friday night games, but they talked about how he just poured into them when they were struggling in different parts of their lives. And that's what a lot of these coaches and teachers and administrators do that people never know about.
Yeah, Scott, our show has had several sponsors really since the beginning. We're going to have a couple of new businesses that will begin sponsoring us on August the 17th, and we're certainly grateful for all of those. We're especially grateful that Anthony Dragoing, the owner of Roman Oven Pizzeria, is allowing us to do this at his restaurant. Scott, tell people a little of what you're hoping that this live show will be like and maybe how they can be a part of it.
I'm hoping that some people will stop by and see us. I mean, we're going to be going live. We're going to be trying to do this same thing. But if we see some of the players that come by and we have a gap in our plan to where we can bring a couple of them and sit down and ask them some questions, we'll definitely do it. Whether it's a player or a coach, I know the coaches their schedule is just so packed during football season, and Thursday night sometimes is one of the nights they get to spend with their family. But if they do have time and want to stop by the Roman Oven and want to sit down and talk with us, by all means, people would rather hear them talk than you and I, because a lot of times we're speculating, and what they're spitting out are facts and what they know to be true. We have to go on speculation sometimes. So yeah, I'm hoping that. I'm hoping that the cheerleaders and the band parents, everybody gets on board with this, because it's such a rippling community effect from a football game. Is there's just not just what goes on in the game. A lot of times what's going on in the stands with everybody else too.
We're talking with Scott Westbrook. Scott is going to be my co-host for the live version of Integrity Sports Podcast, which again begins August the 17th. We'll be live at the Roman Oven Pizzeria. Today's program is brought to you in part by Marty McDonald State Farm Insurance. His office is located at 925 North Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Americus. Drop by and see Marty or any of his fine staff, or you can give them a call at 928-3686. They'd be happy to sit down and discuss your insurance needs. Marty can even do the discount double check to make sure that you're getting all of the savings that you're qualified to receive. As always, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Scott, another thing I want to talk about, we're in the process. I don't know if it'll be ready for week one. I hope so, but we're trying to develop a live chat online so that if people can't make it out to the podcast that night, they can interact with us through the live chat. And hopefully between you and I, we can monitor that live chat during the show and answer some of the viewers' questions. As we look ahead to this 2023 high school football season here in Southwest Georgia, what can we expect going into the season from the three teams that we're going to focus on? That's Sly County, Southland, Sumter County.
And once again, this is speculation on what happened last year. We know that Southland graduated some good talent. They really lost some good players. So Coach Rod Murray has got his hands full replacing some pretty big holes in his on both sides of the ball. So we'll both be interested to see how that plays out after week one, and who ends up being where. Hopefully we can get some insight prior to week one of who's going to be playing where. Sumter County is, they got new beginnings. They got new coach. Coach Will Rogers is coming in. He's what's come through the rec department as far as football talent in Sumter County in the past few years. Sadly, that has not always manifested into high school talent in recent years, but hopefully it will begin to. I mean, because these kids, they're great athletes. They've proved that at the rec league and middle school, and we can just get it to go on into high school now for Sumter County. And Sly County, it's no secret. I mean, we were 8 points shy of a state championship last year, or I should say 9 points, I guess. Returning 18 starters and just got a phenomenal coaching staff. And as long as we can just realize that just all three teams really realize the most important game is the one they're playing that week, regardless of what happens the next week or subsequent weeks, and we can all avoid the injury bug throughout the season. That we should have some pretty good stuff to talk about throughout the.
Yeah, Scott, I talked with Coach Mike Shaddles recently, who's one of the assistant coaches at Southland Academy, and he kind of basically said what you said. They did lose a lot of players at Southland that meant a lot to them. But they got a good crop of younger guys coming in, and they're really excited about what they've seen so far in both the spring and the summer, and that'll go into fall camp. So we look forward to Southland kind of replacing those guys. Will Rogers, a defensive-minded coach. Will was the defensive coordinator for Sumter County last year. They've got record numbers out right now as far as working in the weight room and guys that are doing 7-on-7. So there's a lot of excitement surrounding the Sumter County Panthers program. And like you said, I got to agree with you. It does a community good when your high school football team does well, we certainly want to see Sumter County on the up and up. And then Sly County is probably at an all-time high going into a season, like you said, just an 8-point loss in the state championship game and returned nearly everybody. Definitely lost a couple of good seniors that have gone on to play college football. Scott, I think we're going to have a lot of fun covering these teams. And we'll talk a little more later in the show about some of the other things that we'll bring up. Scott, it's always a little scary to me when we look at going live, because when we're recording, and you and I are recording this now, it actually plays on Thursday. We're recording this on Wednesday night. If we mess up, we can edit that, right? When you're live, you can't do it. And trust me, between you and I, we're going to mess up. So that's a little scary. And then you have things like the live chat. And if somebody puts something inappropriate in the live chat, or maybe we get people in the restaurant and one of the mics picks up some foul language. So, we'll have to figure out how we're going to handle that. But Scott, what I'd like for you to do is take this opportunity to talk to potential viewers. And what would you tell them about things like that on this show?
Well, I have a lot of faith. It's funny because Michelle and I were talking about that earlier tonight. But they have these shows in areas that are a lot larger and more populated than ours. They seem to avoid it. Of course, now the two of us, we don't have Thurston hitting the 7-second delay button on us,
right?
Either. So that's a little worrisome. But you and I have been around live mics enough to know that hopefully your mind is working quicker than your mouth. That isn't always the case with me. You seem to handle a little better than I do. But I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be fine. I don't think we're gonna have to worry about folks coming in and being in the restaurant and being too boisterous and saying something inappropriate. The live chat, that may be a little bit different. We'll see how that turns out. But I'm optimistic on all three of those fronts. To be honest with you, I think it's gonna be fine, and I hope that the fear of the unknown a little bit may get some viewers in there to hope we mess up a little bit every once in a while,
Yeah. Scott, one of the things we'll focus on Sly County, Southland Academy, and Sumter County High. And our program will be somewhere between 40 and 45 minutes long each week. So we definitely want to make sure we hit those three schools. But we'll also inform people the upcoming schedule for schools like Lee County, Macon County, Crisp, Marion County, Taylor County, Deerfield, Windsor. There's a lot of good football schools right here around us. We want to make sure as a viewer what games are coming up, but our focus is going to be on those three schools right here in this area. What do you think about that? What can you tell viewers that we'll try to do?
I think mine and your social media footprint stretches into those areas a good bit. And I think that sometimes you never know. There could be a football program, and we'll just say maybe Marion County, they've kind of been down for a few years, and all of a sudden, let's say they turn it around and are setting the woods on fire over there. We're going to have to talk about it. We're going to have to acknowledge the fact that they're just the next county over, and they may have a surprising seniors season. The same with Taylor. Taylor's got a second-year coach that I've heard nothing but good things about. They really like him. The kids are buying into him. He's got some young coaches and got some older coaches in there. And so, they believe last year, other than the games that Sly lost, I think Taylor might have played Sly stronger as anybody did. They came in with a good game plan and we eventually pulled away in the end, but they had a really good game plan. But Crisp and Lee, they're just perennial powerhouses. We can't ignore those anyway, because they're always going to be in the hunt. In Macon County also. So in Deerfield, Windsor, we've got enough listeners that I think that we need to touch on those, just exactly like you said, because it's even people in the three schools that we just mentioned, they've got friends and family that go and participate in those schools, and they'll have some peripheral interest in that as well, I think.
Scott, every week I try to give my guests a chance to talk a little bit about their family and those folks that really support them behind the scenes. You and I are pretty well known because of the social media and the fact that we've been PA announcers at different places. but I have a feeling that this show is going to really propel. It's going to grow quickly. I can't remember anything like this ever happening in the Sumter County, greater Sumter County area. So tell those that are watching this that look forward to this show a little bit about you and your family.
Yeah, I'm not from the area. I grew up in Alpharetta, and people ask me how I ended up in this part of the country, and I tell them witness protection, and I tell them that, and joking, but my wife did not want to go back when she finished at Auburn. She did not want to go back to Atlanta and raise a family. She wanted to raise a family in a small town. So I was young in my 20s then, and said we'll try it for 6 or 8 months, and here we are, 30-something years later, still here. My mother passed away in 2014. They're multi-generational from Alpharetta, Crabapple area. My dad still lives there. He's 91. He's been, farmed his whole life and woodworked, and really my 2 sisters see after him a good bit. Right now they're saints, so that I can really enjoy these years with Carson before Michelle and I become empty nesters, and they've been really good about that. Tucker right now, my oldest, he is a missionary in Thailand right now, student pastor at Georgia Southern. He's got a group there. He'll be back at home in a couple of weeks, and believe it or not, he's almost as excited as I am about this upcoming football season. He won a state championship in tennis with Taylor County, so he's hoping that Carson can experience that same thing at Sly. My daughter Lily Claire starting a new job right now in the Rosemary Beach area. She's a nurse. She's been a nurse in Atlanta for 2 or 3 years. She's taken a job. She started a few weeks ago as an OR nurse down in Panama City at a trauma hospital down there. She's really enjoyed that. And of course, Carson, rising senior at Sly County, and he's just enjoying every bit of that right now. And my wife, Michelle, my first wife, Michelle, she is we've been married over 30 years now. And, I punted way past my coverage. I tell her every day, I can't believe she married me, but it's too late now. It's too late to back out now. So I'm very fortunate in with parents and spouse and kids that, and friends that just really uplift me and keep encouraging me along the way. And I'm thankful for it.
Absolutely. Scott, I think one of the neat things that we're going to experience, one of our sponsors every week since the start has been WMNZ. AM 1050 radio. They're out of Montezuma. Right. They're also the station that covers Macon County football, and they do that play-by-play. Every week they take the audio off of our program and play it on their radio station. So I have a feeling that we're going to pick up a good bit of listeners from that Macon County area, especially as the show goes live. And of course it will be recorded, and they can pull the audio off of that and play it. So I have a feeling that the Macon County contingent over there will definitely know a little bit more going in about Sly County in particular, but really about football in this area. But I do want to take this opportunity and thank Lance Teal and the staff of WMNZ AM 1050. Scott, as we get ready to wrap this thing up today, I just, first of all, I want to tell you how much I appreciate you being willing to do this. You and I have been lunch buddies and friends for a long time, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But just give our audience your hopes as we get ready to launch this in about 3 or 4 weeks of what this show is going to be about.
I really I just hope that it gets people more fired up about high school sports and gets them to plug in and come out of their pocket for a little bit of money and start going to the games and going to these games, because these kids, I've told Carson, I said, let me tell you something, buddy. You only guaranteed 4 years where somebody's going to pull money out of their pocket and pay to see you play. So you better enjoy every bit of it. And I'm hoping that more people, whoever you claim is your local team, you support them. You support the sponsors. You support the band. Support the concession stands, the cheerleaders, just everybody around. I'm going to tell you this, Tim. This week, and I go through ebbs and flows of this. Thurston has been so kind to give us the broadcast of some of last year's football games and baseball games. I have listened to the 7th inning of that Wilcox County baseball game probably 15 or 20 times this week. I know I did it 4 or 5. I'll sit there and I'll listen to that inning and I'll back it up and I'll listen to it again. I'm looking forward to the broadcast that you and William do this year. and hopefully, we get some. I'll be listening to a lot of those probably years down the road. So I appreciate you, and like I said, I hope it really that the local schools and the Friday night atmosphere is enhanced and improved because of what we do on Thursday night.
Well, and speaking of replays of our show will be available on our YouTube channel. It'll also be available on Facebook, on Twitter, and on LinkedIn, and several other podcast and social media platforms. For us to continue to grow, we need to get to the 1,000 subscriber mark on YouTube. So, Scott, one of the things we're going to push really hard right up front is for those folks that are watching or listening to go to YouTube, type into the search bar Integrity Sports Podcast, and then hit the subscribe button when you get to our channel. We'll be able to do a lot more if we can get to that 1,000 subscriber mark. So please help us do that. It's free, and the only notifications that you'll get is when a new show airs. So, Scott, I appreciate you being my guest today, and we want to thank everybody that's watching today for watching the Integrity Sports Podcast, powered by Harper's Tree and Stump Removal. Thanks for making us a part of your weekly routine. Again, if you're watching on Facebook, hit the like and share button. Please watch us on YouTube and hit the subscribe button there. And we'll, like I said, we'll also be available on, I think it's 9 other social media or podcast platforms. Scott, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Tim.
For Scott Westbrook, I'm your host, Tim Estes. Remember, August 17th, we go live at 7 p.m. at the Roman Oven Restaurant. Thanks for watching. So long.